Immediately after the first shells were fired at Fort Sumter, Abraham Lincoln ordered the Union Navy to blockade southern ports. This officially marked the beginning of what we know as the Civil War at sea. The first naval battle of the Civil War was the Battle of Gloucester Point on April 14, 1861. This battle may be notable as the first exchange of fire after the Battle of Fort Sumter. The battle was not anything to fuss about, however, this was only the beginning. The first major naval battle of the Civil War was the Battle of Port Royal. The U.S. Navy and U.S. Army Expeditionary Force captured Port Royal Sound, South Carolina on November 7, 1861. This battle just showed how difficult it would be for the Confederates to defend its coastline. Even though the harbor was protected by two forts, the Confederates were greatly outnumbered and could not hold off the Union fleet of 17 warships, 600 Marines, and more than 12,000 Army soldiers. It wasn't the weather that made it happen, though. On the original battle day, November 1st, a storm scattered the fleet, sinking several key transport ships. After 6 days, however, shots were finally fired, resulting in a major Union victory. Port Royal Bay was given up completely after the Union had already captured one of the protecting forts, making it clear that the battle was over. Coincidentally, on the day after the Union occupation, General Robert E. Lee arrived in a nearby city to take command of the Atlantic Coast Defense System. Fresh from defeat in West Virginia, Lee's second major command also ended in disappointment. The coast was too large for his amount of resources to handle, and he had to abandon most of the coastal islands in hope that reinforcements would rush to any danger point in time to prevent its capture. The problem was that it allowed the Union forces to blockade most of the Atlantic coast, blocking the channels that connected river ports to the sea. The Battle of Hampton Roads was arguably the most important naval battle of the Civil War. On March 8, 1862, the USS Monitor made its voyage from New York to defend the immobile USS Minnesota. The plan of the CSS Virginia was to destroy the USS Minnesota, but that was until she saw the USS Monitor out in the distance the next morning on March 9, 1862. Virginia steamed into Hampton Roads and the battle began. Both ironclads hammered away at each other, but neither could penetrate the tough iron armor that each ship wore. Even though 338 men total were killed, the first battle between ironclads had ended in a tie. The Battle of Fort Hindman was fought January 9 through January 11, 1863, near the mouth of the Arkansas River. Fort Hindman was manned by about 5,000 men under Brigadier General Thomas J. Churchill. Union General John A. McClernand got permission from Abraham Lincoln to launch a corps-sized offensive against Vicksburg, hoping for military glory. Instead, McClernand went against orders and launched a combined Army-Navy movement on Fort Hindman. On January 9th, Union boats landed troops near Fort Hindman. On January 10th, the Union fleets bombarded Fort Hindman. And then, on January 11th, the Union ironclads fired at the fort and infantry moved in for attack. In that afternoon, about 5,500 Confederates surrendered, resulting in the largest Confederate surrender in the war. The sinking of USS Housatonic on February 17, 1864, was an important turning point in naval warfare. On this day, the Confederate submarine H.L. Hunley made her first and only attack on a Union warship. The mission was to lift the Union blockade of Charleston, South Carolina. Only 5 men on the Housatonic died, but this began the era of submarine warfare. The Battle of Mobile Bay occurred in the span of August 2nd through August 23rd, 1864. On August 5th, a Union fleet commanded by Rear Admiral David G. Farragut attacked a smaller Confederate fleet and 3 forts that guarded the entrance to Mobile Bay. Farragut maintained to get his fleet past the shore-based guns, and that was then followed by the Confederates' fleet reduction to just one vessel. The CSS Tennessee was an ironclad that tried to take on the entire Union fleet under Farragut, but didn't last long and was forced to surrender. The Union was then able to move on to completing the blockade of the rest of the region past the Mississippi River. The Battle of Trent's Reach was one of the final major naval battles of the Civil War. Beginning on January 23, 1865, a powerful group of Confederate warships bombarded Fort Brady along the James River and engaged four Union Navy ships with the intention of breaking through the blockade to attack City Point. Overall, the Union fleet was outnumbered. One advantage for the Union fleet, however, was the line of naval mines they had established from bank to bank on the James River. This battle resulted as one of the final Union victories during the Civil War.